I'm Anna.
I'm Ben.
We're AutoSave. Welcome to our channel.
Today we're watching the Apothecary Diaries, Season 1, Episode 15. No reason Mao Mao didn't pass the court lady exam. There's no... I'm not surprised anymore. She doesn't need to take exams. She needs to be giving them. Mao Mao is the best teacher.
When you started that, I thought that you were going to go the route of, like, there must have been sabotage of her exam answers or something. Because someone back in this court area wouldn't want Mao Mao to become a court lady.
You know what? That's not...
where I thought you were going, but you're right.
Totally off the table.
She is a teacher.
Yeah.
She's not a student.
Vibes on Master Lacan have definitely gone in the opposite direction from my initial interpretation of his staring. I feel like he's a lot more likely now to be less of a creep and more of like a fanatic about, I don't know, the same type of thing that Mao Mao are, whether it's deduction or conjecture.
Mm-hmm.
And I love Lao Lin, even though that we have not gotten much, and we have speculated whether or not she is connected to any type of sabotage with an ivory pipe.
Right. There is something that I wanted to go over with you before going into this episode.
Okay.
Obviously, this is coming as a surprise to you because I didn't want to talk about it with you outside of this room.
Yes.
But
Am I in trouble?
No.
Okay, good.
We get a shot at the very end of last episode, as we always do, that is leading into future events.
Yeah.
So what we see is a eunuch or military officer with these very beautiful blue eyes looking at this rather upset other man at a table.
You're very right.
These eyes remind me of the military officer that was putting the salt in Sir Conan's drinks.
Interesting.
I'm pretty sure that person also had very beautiful blue eyes, and I want to look at them again, maybe side by side, and see if I have noticed anything real or if it is just mere coincidence and removal from the episodes and the evidence in front of me.
That's a great idea. Do you know whereabouts the episode
I think it was
been?
murder. It was murder, suicide was the suicide or murder was
Gotcha,
the episode
9, I believe, right?
Right.
Let's see.
We get an actual shot of someone during the scene, like spiking the drink or something, and we see the eyes.
It sounds so familiar.
Oh, ooh, okay. It might be in here.
Ooh, you might be right. This, right?
Mm-hmm. I think we see the face, or at least the eyes.
I think you're right.
Dark hair.
Yeah.
Yes! See? Okay. You see what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, they look pretty freaking similar
They
from
look like the
episode
same
9,
dude.
14. They do. It literally looks like a mirrored version of the image. That's
so, am I not
interesting.
crazy for bringing this up here?
No, of course not.
As soon as we ended last episode off, I was like, I have seen this face before. I've seen those eyes, that look.
They have such a great way at like planting seeds that you'll completely forget about, and then you turn around and it's a tree. Like, that's crazy.
I wrote a note in my notebook to bring this up, but obviously it's not fun to talk about these things outside of being in here with the camera on, because then, we don't really get to talk about it and no one else gets to hear it.
It feels wrong to
talk about it separately.
Feels like it's like skipping over something. I don't know. But that's a good...
So yeah, I wanted to bring this up before we went into next episode, because that was the end of episode 14.
If it is the same person, which they look pretty similar, then his expression has changed in between these two sequences, which is interesting enough.
Right. Another thing I wanted to bring up in this line of thinking, I remember in that episode, Suicide or Murder, we were in that line of thinking that what happened to Sir Conan was a accident. Like, they didn't know that it was going to necessarily kill him. But then we find out later on, a couple episodes later, when we're talking about the servant that fell to their death in the water and drowned, when we're talking about it again, it's talked about as if she chose to do that. Yeah. Which would have been a suicide instead. So the idea of I had come out of that episode 9, with an established, this was the suicide, this was the murder. Yeah. or this was the accident and it wasn't actually a murder. And I feel like now that we're seeing this man again,
I'm worried that the themes are going to be brought back up this episode.
right?
You know, oh. Okay, all right, you ready?
Yes.
Sweet.
The bright blue.
There's blue everywhere.
The bright blue. I feel so strongly that he is of familial relationship in some way to Mao Mao.
Master Lacan?
Mm-hmm. And I know it might just be like crazy theory, brain going wherever it wants to go, conjecture, but...
That's the nature of the show. I'm so happy to be watching the show.
The fire the other day. Yeah, he solved it. No, don't believe rumors. Beautiful intellectual with cold eyes. Jinshi would not be happy to know that people wouldn't shut up about her.
Oh my god. I feel like we're going to be meeting each other this episode. Okay.
Pufferfish.
Ah, dangerous. I would love a pufferfish.
Sweetening the pot.
Let's take this serious.
Oh, did he just recently ask you for that advice? You are someone who knows her place. Interesting line.
Is it like a cold case test or is it a setup?
Yeah.
What? Who loved eating rare foods. Almost So it's
like,
not like an allergy they're just discovering, you know?
almost like when you continue drinking, but there's something in it now.
Then became intoxicated and collapsed. Is it a reaction?
Make up a suspect. Blame the chef.
Regardless, it's somebody who knows what the fuck they're doing, you know?
Because it's colder?
What is... Oh my god. There you go. I love Goshen's trust of Mao Mao. Okay. Very true.
Yeah.
I think
Let
Jinchi
him-
will be helpful.
Let him be a part of it.
Hmm.
珍味を好むということは変わった海藻を入れることもあるだろう。もしよろしければその家の厨房を見せてもらうことはできませんか？
Is it because we have a lead or just because we want to see the strange seaweeds and try them? I remember him! He was sparring with Jinshi.
You're my follower. Don't do anything without my permission.
We always say how he'd be a great marriage candidate.
Good. Crime scene etiquette.
You're gonna look suspicious.
He's gonna be watching.
The master's younger brother. It was the master that fell into the coma. Younger brother wanting to usurp
Could
a
be a red
position.
herring. You think we took some?
I think we might have. I think we might have.
行きたがったとは思っていません。持ってきたのか。これ不思議なんです。この海藻が取れる時期には
Isn't in season quite yet.
だからといって塩漬けにしたところで今の時期まで持つものではありません。例えば交易で南から仕入れたものだとか、どこから仕入れたのかわかると良いのですが。分かってくれたらしい。なら、私も私のやるべきことをやろ
う。I'm getting a little worried for Mao Mao's safety.
なんだこれは。
なぜジンシ様もいるんだろう。
He wants to be involved.
やはり海藻は南方から持ち込まれたものでした。
同じ海藻なら毒がない。
Just because it's the same seaweed.
もしかしたら南ではあまりこの海藻は食べる習慣がないのかもしれません。美食家の役人の好物だと知った交易商が金になると思いわざわざ地元民に海藻の塩漬けを作らせたとしたら、世の中には毒が無毒になることがあるんです。例えばうなぎには本来毒がありますが、血を抜いたり加熱することで
This is so fascinating.
この海藻の場合は石灰水につけることが必要だったはずです。ここに用意したものは石灰水につけそうでないものです。
And now I'm gonna try it in front of you.
大丈夫です、多分。
Probably.
ご安心を。ちゃんとオート剤はここに。
自信満々に言うな。ガシュン。はい。
Oh God.
ここで問題なのですが、交易商人に海藻の塩漬けを持ってくるよう提案したのは誰でしょうか。取り寄せたのが食べた当人であればある意味自業自得ですが、でももしそうでないなら、食べる習慣のない地方から取り寄せれば危険性が高いのは当たり前。ここにいる者たちは賢い。これ以上言う必要はないだろう。
That's good. She can leave things left unsaid. That's helpful.
I think it's
to her
less
case.
risky.
Definitely. The younger brother, older brother thing just makes me think of Jinshi and the Emperor.
You got it.
Unfortunately, a commonplace story for us in this world.
Yeah.
Happened to. There's a meddlesome person.
That's
Lurking.
beautiful blue eyes.
Just like Mao Mao.
おかえりなさいませ。おかえりなさいませませ。
It was so long.
So good. It's not my fault. It is your fault.
Oh my god.
I'm so tired.
Oh.
どうにも馬が合わない相手がいて意見が違ってしまうのだ。相手は頭の切れる軍部の高官だ。家柄は良いのに40を過ぎて再退もせず、老い子を養子にとって家の管理を任せている有名な変人だ。
A famous
40
weirdo.
を過ぎた軍部の高官で変人。
興味のあるものといえばもっぱら碁と将棋と噂話。どうも標的にされたらしい。このところ毎日執務室に居座られて。よし、忘れよう。思い出してもろくなことにならない。しかし、まあ忘れたところでいつもの嫌な予感は当たるのだが。案件はもう通ったはずですが。
冬に花見は難しいならばこちらでと思いましてな。
And the nephew? Interesting
この
addition.
男の名はラカン。軍師をやっている。どうやら突っかかってくる理由は六将官に縁のあるマオマを下女にしたことにあるらしい。
そういえば
An old acquaintance.
昔馴染みがいましてね。
意外な話だ。色事など全く興味ないのかと思っていたが。
と将棋が得意で将棋では勝てるが碁では負けてばかりだった。あれほど面白い女にはもう会えないだろうと身請けも考えましたが、物好きの金持ちが2人競い合うように値を釣り上げていった。芸は売れど身は売らず、それどころか客を客とも思わない。客に茶を継ぐ
Mao Mao's mom? Is that the one who's sick?
背筋にゾクゾクっとくる感覚がたまらないものでして。
Who's Mao Mao's dad?
いつか押し倒してみたいと思っていたものですよ。
The vibes are back to where they originally were.
結局その議場を諦めきれず仕方なく少々汚い手を使いました。
というと、
高くて手が出せないなら
Lower its value, get her pregnant. Something like that? Or get her sick?
下げたんですよ。まあその前にちょっと頼みたいことがあるんですが。
何ですか一体。
そちらに最近入った下女というのがなかなか面白いようで、妙に謎解きが得意なようですな。奴には3人の子供がいて弟子にしていたんですが、秘伝と言える技術を伝えぬまま行ってしまったのが不憫でね。きっと彼の思わせぶりな遺言が何かの手がかりだと思うんですよ。
Wow.
This is so fucking brilliant.
What a way to depict him.
何が言
Fucking
いたいのでし
snake,
ょう。
bro.
いや、何大したことではない。その秘伝の技術を
What a shot!
思ったまでです。例えば頭の回るそちらの下女が調べてくれやしないものかと。
よく降るな。
I feel icky.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, that was the Apothecary Diaries. Season 1, Episode 15.
Yes, it was.
So, Mao Mao's mom.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. The hair color, the way that the front, like the way that the hair's tied.
The idea of Mao Mao pondering about it. Without that involved, I would have been like, he's the reason that she's sick or something. The fact that Mao Mao is aware of someone with these interests and skills.
What
and
age they would be at the moment.
makes me believe that it's what you had said in the episode of impregnating her.
Yeah.
I fucking don't want to hear about how that happened. But I don't know how I feel about, like, I'm like, I'm scared. I don't like this guy. I don't like him in the same vicinity as Mao Mao.
They did a really good job in terms of writing his dialogue, other than the visuals, which we'll get into, that help enforce like how the viewer might feel about him in any given moment. They did a good job. If he's a strategist, then the way he was speaking was like he was playing cards, and he was wording things specifically to either lead you or mislead you. It felt very much like one thing's being said that is going to lead me to believe that he did want to, at some point, force himself on her, but he said that as if it was something that he didn't do. But then later on, he says that he did something to her that decreased her value.
Correct.
Or that would supposedly decrease her value. And so there was like this push and pull in terms of like how I felt as a viewer of where my speculation should go, like what direction. And should it go? Like this was a man that pushed her to a point of a poisoning or a sickness or succumbing to some sort of like he injured her intellectually or made her actually want to do something or contemplate something, like actually broke her as a person. Like I can go manipulate. If she's such a strong-willed, intelligent person, and he is too, would his focus be on to break the spirit of something that is so intriguing so that it won't be intriguing to everyone else? Because he said, yes, she's beautiful, but that's not why everyone wanted her and why he wanted her. It was because of her mind that she was intriguing and the way that she looked at people.
Wouldn't she have to have a baseline positive feeling with Lacan, at least like somewhat positive, for him to be able to manipulate her in such a way, if that was the case?
It is possible that she was romantic. I feel like if she's this personality that is an intellectual that wants to have conversations that are stimulating in that nature, and that is what would draw her to another person,
then
it could be that he was something that she would have been romantically interested in.
But why is he so fucking creepy about it? I'm sorry, why? Okay, if that's the case, there's such an emphasis on him buying her out, right? We've seen a similar instance of like an ideal situation working out where a courtesan or someone along the lines ends up with a person that they are infatuated with, and not only infatuated with, but the feeling is mutual. Mm-hmm. If a feeling was mutual here, I don't know if, like, when he uses like terminologies about what he wants to do to her, it doesn't feel very mutual. And then if it was mutual, I feel like there might have been a different way to go about it, or a different conversation between the two to come up with a plan together. I'm not saying that didn't necessarily happen, but I don't know.
Thankfully, this story has given us so many options of what could be the parallel. Like, we've had so many scenarios from forced, like, murder-suicides, from being promised to being bought out and then that person backs out on the offer, or being promised to be bought out, decreasing your value with sleepwalking so that the person that you want to buy you out can get you for a cheaper price. We've gotten so many different ways. We even have Mao Mao and Jinshi's example in this story of what happened and how Jinshi bought Mao Mao out at the Verdigris house.
Okay. Let's say, regardless of her feelings, because we don't know them, let's play it out. He wants to do something to depreciate her value so that he can buy her out, correct? Mm-hmm. So he can do whatever he wants. That action is put into play. Hypothetically, let's say it's impregnating her. She gets pregnant. Her value either A, depreciates, and then something occurs where she's bedridden. I'm making a leap assuming that person that Mao Mao was checking on was her mom, but makes her bedridden or in a comatose state that leads him to be like, okay, I don't want her anymore. Mm. Or B, I don't know. Like
you even just brought up another one of the bazillion ideas of intrigue that have been added.
Is it bad that my mind immediately goes to that's Mao Mao's mom who's laying down? Like,
I don't think it's bad necessarily, but why I think that it's awesome for this story is that our minds are bouncing around to all these different really speculative, intriguing morsels, if you will, that have been added to this story. Yes, we have this idea in this episode of comatose, of comas, and also I believe that when we first saw a person in a bed, it was more towards the white powder, like, epidemic, if you will, and being referenced in Mao Mao's, like, flashbacks. And so that person in the annex, like, it definitely is a giant question mark in terms of who they are and how they got to be in the place that they are. And I still don't have concrete feelings on who and what and why they're there, because I feel like there are so many, like... I feel like when I'm normally watching a show, there's one or two, maybe really just one theory that I can start to build with evidence that feels strong and feels like it stands out amongst anything else.
Yeah.
I feel like with this show that does not exist. It feels like there could be 5 different theories and all of them could have foreshadowing evidence, parallel evidence, you know?
Yeah, I agree with you.
Theme evidence.
And I think that that's just all due to how well the writing's been in terms of, like, breadcrumbs.
And
like...
the point. One of the things that must have been, like, the person who wrote this is focus for the story. Like, one of the things that was obviously intentional in writing this story was how heavy the theme of intrigue, speculation, and unknown, and what it could possibly be, and piecing things together and solving puzzles. That was obviously such a heavy focus for the writer of this story.
I definitely agree with that.
It's like they knew who their main character was going to be before they even started writing the story.
Yeah, definitely. Like,
and then they put every ounce of who their main character was and their personality into the actual narrative itself.
Yeah.
Not just in... Like, Mao Mao isn't a main character that's floating on top of this narrative that you could drop any other character in her position. The narrative is woven so, like, tightly with who she is and the fabric of her character writing.
Yeah.
That you couldn't just put someone else in that position.
I agree with that.
Or even imagine yourself in this world or in her position. Like, this couldn't be... I know I always bring up, like, Otome games or something. This couldn't be a visual novel or anything of the sort where you are inserting yourself in the main character's position as you're reading it.
Yeah.
Where you change the name of the character to your name. Like that, no. Like, Mao Mao as Mao Mao is like this with the narrative and the themes and everything about this world.
I have a question for you. Other than in the episode that we are in the bath when we're asked to go to the annex and we see the woman laying down, are we shown her again?
We're shown her 3 times.
Okay.
Maybe 4. We're shown her... we might visit her again when we go back to the Verdigris house before being bought by Jinshi. We definitely visit her on the going to the annex scene. We see her in the bed, I believe, in the scene where Mao Mao is talking to Jinshi with the really red lighting in the room about if she were to die. And we also see her in the first episode of the series, I think, too.
Okay. I think that the time... Yes, I think the time that, you know, with the red and the talking about poisons was the one that I was thinking of that I couldn't recall, you know? Mm-hmm. But interesting. And going back and seeing just visions of it now, it's very peculiar. Like, Mao Mao does not seem to have any... Mao Mao having... Okay, I don't know what the fucking fingers thing is yet of her looking at her hands, but Mao Mao having such a weird interpretation of romance and love. She has seemingly null, I think is a good term for it, feelings at the moment when it comes to her mother, potentially, which I think is very interesting and could say a lot about what the mother has done or said or how they interacted with Mao Mao, you know. If that is the case, if Mao Mao knew about her mother and how she acted or how she would have interacted with whoever Mao Mao's father is, that could definitely put a weird warp of emotional manipulation and like psychological manipulation and trauma and reluctance there in terms of that romance element that Mao Mao has that, you know, wall up from.
Mao Mao definitely has a lot of feelings, at least from what she's witnessed at the Verdigris house, in terms of women being rather scary, how quickly they can change up from what you might have guessed they would act. They might act totally different, which could lead into the thought of like her maybe not having an understanding of why her mother might have been romantically interested in the person that she was, or why her mother might have changed or ended up doing something or being victim to something that Mao Mao would have never perceived that she would have based on her personality. We have the idea that women will maybe do anything, even hurt themselves with this white powder in order to feel beautiful or be perceived as beautiful and high value to society. What if love could be an ingredient to make medicine? What type of medicine would it make? Fang Ming telling her how much Ao Duo was important to her, and Mao Mao being like, I don't have anyone that I would like do these things for. That I feel that and that idea starts to be there of like Mao Mao has a lack of understanding in terms of her own personal experience of how the crazy things people can be pushed to do because of feelings like love and attachment and connection.
It definitely like adds up in my mind where Mao Mao's position was and is currently within the Verdigris house, and within like if whether it was because Mao Mao's mom like came down with something or changed or was traumatized or whatever, it feels right and almost complete as to why everybody is very family-like to Mao Mao within the Verdigris house and her father.
And all the big sisters is how she refers to the three princesses.
Now, do you still think Mao Mao's dad knew Lao Lin or had a relationship with Lao Lin in the sense of like that somehow, let's say hypothetically Lao Lin was Mao Mao's dad, would that be evident within a relationship
between
between... Oh yeah, sorry. Master Lacan, yeah. If Master Lacan was actually Mao Mao's dad or something of the sorts, and what we know is Mao Mao's dad had a relationship with him previously, whether it was positive or negative, would that be I was in love with your mother too, or for like intellectually, like, or like I knew what kind of person she was, or like I treated her, like, would that be part of the reason Mao Mao was raised by him potentially? I don't think necessarily.
I don't think that would have been what would necessarily have linked them. I don't think that Mao Mao's father strikes me as someone who would have paid to sit down to play games with a courtesan at the Verdigris house.
Yeah, that's not what I was meaning by it. I was trying to suggest that, like, whether through checkups or, you know, any type of interaction at the Verdigris house with Mao Mao's mother, he could have been like, whoa, you're an interesting person, like in that kind of deduction type of way.
So where I would go is probably thinking that he's had Mao Mao since birth.
Yeah.
I would assume that if Mao Mao's 17 and her father was expelled at around 17 years ago, around 16, 17 years. I think it was 16 years ago he was expelled because of, you know, the prince dying.
Yeah.
Then I feel like he would have maybe treated Mao Mao's mother or Mao Mao, maybe when Mao Mao was a baby, you know, taken as he does. He treats the women at the Verdigris house, you know, as an apothecary, as a doctor. And that something must have happened to Mao Mao's father where it was like, well, none of the courtesans, like, should be taking on having a baby, and maybe he, as the doctor, is the one that decides to offer a home to her because it's better than having her be raised in the verdigris house.
Man, the possibilities right now are truly endless.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I know what
they
you're
really
saying.
are.
It's like, it's...
There's so many areas and places that you can go to start
any way would be so good, too, like, coming up. Because it's like, okay, if like, in the terms of if this is Mao Mao's mom and she became pregnant with Mao Mao, there's immediately an infinite number of options with how and what the feeling of that pregnancy would be, and what her, response to that would be.
Yeah.
And that determining the outcome of where everybody's at. Like, I'm thinking, like, okay, why is the master at the verdigris house? Why is she so, like, Mao Mao, go to the annex, right? Like, is she doing it in the sense of potentially helping her mother, or potentially healing and diagnosing, or is it like this is the right thing to do, you should spend time with your mom? Is it like there's so many different variations of options that I feel like I could go with this, but god damn it, I love this show, man.
I want to get into the idea of romantic.
Okay, real quick, can I gush about this fucking first of all, the scene with the silhouetted Lacan is absolutely phenomenal. It really gives this level of like sick, like, I don't know, conjecture at its core, like
rumors.
Like,
we said that he has a love for rumors.
Yeah, and it really sells that well. And what I wanted to talk about was right after it, when he's picking up, I don't know if you'd call it a monocle. But,
is it the glass?
Yeah, this is so fucking cool, man. Oh,
it's amazing.
That's so awesome. Like, what a creative choice.
I also wrote down to bring up those scenes, just to talk about them visually.
That's so, like, you start with white, you cover it with blur, and then oh my god, bro. I love this show. Okay, romance.
So when Locken walks into Jinshi's office, Jinshi has a line that is, that he's surprised that this man in particular had any interest in romance at all. Obviously we know that Mao Mao fits that character trope. From what we hear of her mother, it's the same situation. Why would Locken be so curious about these rumors he's hearing about Mao Mao? There are two options to me. Either he knows that Mao Mao's mother was once pregnant and had a kid, and he has confirmation of that, or he's just really trapped in the nostalgia of still thinking about this woman and that hearing stories that remind him of this person. But I tend to lean in the direction of he actually knows more information. So I think that that's interesting to bring up the idea of romance with them, especially when we think about the fact that Jinshi did buy Mao Mao out, and that idea that both of these people in this room, both of these men in this room, have a similar feeling in terms of they don't want others to have or see the person that they have affection for in the light. Like, in their prime. Yeah. Mao Mao, when she's seen, dressed up, yes, but also, like, doing something she loves, or thinking and solving puzzles, that is when she's, like, the most beautiful. Yeah. And we get in this episode that, there already are rumors spreading about how beautiful this servant girl is.
But it's such an interesting contrast, because, like, when we're getting, like, how difficult of a conversation this is, that how difficult of a time Jinshi's having with this person, Lacan, you almost build up the false idea that, like, within those two comparisons of how he's talking about Mao Mao's mom and how Jinshi's acted with Mao Mao and buying her out, you could easily have the false conception or preconception that they're very similar in their desire, when it's the complete opposite. It's like Lacan being, I want you so I can like twist you and like own you, like in like that type of degrading sense of the word.
Yes, that is what he verbally said.
Yeah.
And that is the creepy aura that he was giving off. But his aura has already gone like this. And if he's a master strategist who loves rumors, why would you not also think the possibility is there that he would start rumors or mislead people about his own intentions and feelings and personality and create intrigue like and foggy mirrors and
just because he's saying this to Jinshi doesn't necessarily make it true.
He could totally be acting.
You're right.
And I think that something else I would then want to talk about is something I've been wanting to talk about for a while. And I remember we were in the car the other day and I was like, dude, I don't want to forget to talk about this, when we're sitting here ready to talk about it again. And that is the question of how do we get a character like Mao Mao to reciprocate?
Yeah.
In a love story, in a romance. How do we get a character like that to reciprocate? I already have a theory of how you would write a character to, like Mao Mao, to fall in love.
My answer now is different than my answer would have been before this episode.
Interesting. What is it now? Ooh, can you tell me both? Can you tell me what it was and what it would be if they're different?
Yeah, they are different. I think that before I would make it about, like, let's say, of course, Jinshi being of the potential love interest. It's about within Jinshi's own work and views upon the world that Mao Mao hasn't really gotten a deeper look at. Mao Mao is realizing for herself for the first time that love isn't necessarily the physical embodiment that she grew up around in terms of the verdigris house and concubines and like physicality, but it's that same sense of intrigue she has with medicinal herbs and poison, but with another person. But I think that now it would have to come well after her having any type of narrative resolution within her own mother's story.
That is so fair. I do agree that if Mao Mao is to ever reciprocate, there are definitely a few things on the table that need to be talked about or resolved or learned of. And I feel like a few episodes ago, when she was bought out from the verdigris house and moved in as a servant now, we were debating the court lady thing. I remember thinking at that time and even saying that this was a step towards getting us power dynamic wise a little closer to the availability for any feelings to start to be built and it to feel good to the audience.
Yeah.
And I think that something that other than the family, the idea of like, what was her mother's story with romance? How did she come to exist in this world? What are the feelings that led it to be this way? I think that something in terms of her relationship specifically with Jinshi and what would need to be done there or what could be done there. I think this is more just like what I could see being how we get her to reciprocate feelings.
Yeah.
It's very obvious to everyone that Jinshi has feelings for her. I think he would admit it if he was questioned about it, maybe. I don't know exactly what he thinks he feels.
Yeah.
At this point.
He'd bang his head against the wall.
He banged his head against the wall when she said hello. So we keep getting lines from Mao Mao, which is interesting because she's already told us that if she doesn't care too much about something, that she won't either think about it too much or she won't listen to a conversation. She'll end the conversation. We get this idea that the family thing or who this man is something she cannot let go of and forget about. So that's obviously something important to her. But something that she keeps starting to touch on and never going too far with is, oh wow, Master Jinshi's pretty childish.
Yeah.
Oh wow, this is an interesting situation. He has more work than I thought he would have. Or, she keeps touching on who he might be without ever actually digging in or thinking about who he might be. And part of me feels like what I could imagine happening is that the character of Mao Mao would need to maybe, this is just an idea of how you could write her starting to reciprocate feelings. I could see it being a moment where she feels she's put in such a position where she is protective of Jinshi.
Yeah.
Like something happens to Jinshi, or he is in harm's way, or he's being accused of something.
Interesting.
And she is put in a position of, wait, all this time I've spent with him where he's hovering over my shoulder and I'm thinking of him like an annoying little bug. He's always been there for me.
You know what I immediately visualized when you said that? Something happens. Jinshi's being accused of something. He's being, like, about to be, I don't know, punished in some sort of way. And it's, like, happening the next day, let's say. And Mao Mao's trying to uncover what truthfully happened or prove Jinshi's innocence. We have the same shot of Mao Mao when she was trying to study for the court lady exam but getting distracted. But instead, because of how much she cares and how focused she is, she just stays up all night, like, working at it.
Mm-hmm.
And that helps, like, her realize she's obviously invested in him.
Mm-hmm.
Like, her body wouldn't let her do anything else but.
Right, like, she can't... We know now as a character that if something is truly... she tries to avoid having interpersonal feelings involve or cloud her mind at all. But there are some things that, once they're in her brain, they're kind of hard for her to ditch, just like her curiosity and her enthusiasm towards medicine and ingredients and poisons. It is something that she can't fully throw away and ditch in the way that we were told the cold eyes, you know. Maybe that is it, the freckles. What is she really trying to portray or keep back about her own self? Is she trying to not create super close bonds and connections? The convo with the hairpin, when Jinshi gave it to her, it was very much of, I wish I could have been there. I could do something about the men that kidnapped you, you know, like, I wish I had been there. And I feel like having Mao Mao be in a similar place where she could be in a position of saving him or protecting him is very interesting.
I like that.
And that takes me to what could be a possible issue for Jinshi.
Okay.
And that is something that was introduced in this episode. And that is younger brother trying to get rid of older brother.
Yeah.
And in this case, it was real.
Yeah. I don't know how that'd play out, because the relationship has been nothing but good. But if the Emperor learns a potential truth, like we've talked about who Jinshi actually is, that could lead to a sense of paranoia that there is potential for him to be overthrown, you know? I think that exists, potentially, but regardless, can I bring something up?
Yeah.
So, why Lacan, why have him, at the end of this episode, ask for Mao Mao's assistance here? Is it because he can't figure it out? Is it because he needs help? He knows that Mao Mao can do it? Like, what the fuck's the reason, right? That's a question that I have. And then you brought up the idea of not necessarily everything he's telling Jinshi right now necessarily be the truth based off of how much of a strategist he is. Is there potential that Lacan wasn't the father of Mao Mao and didn't get Mao Mao's mom pregnant, but in the same timeline, somebody that Mao Mao's mom actually loved did? And this is a way of him to try to get back at Mao Mao's mom by trying to get closer to Mao Mao and potentially hurt her in a way, because he didn't get Mao Mao's mom.
Interesting.
And
I think he did have a line that was that there was a significantly one other person that was interested in her.
Was it like two families?
It was like one of the first things he said as he started talking about it. He had brought up obviously later in the conversation that so many people would have been drawn to her, but I believe there was a line that was like it was him and someone else that were incredibly intrigued with her.
I had an acquaintance in the verdigris house.
Thought he had no interest in romance. Asked without thinking. She was a good courtesan.
She must have been good. Never meet another woman as interesting as her. Two rich men with curious tastes endlessly tried to outbid each other. And then, where's he trying to go with the story? talking more about her and then what his ideas were.
Right.
Just because people consider buying her out doesn't necessarily mean she has any feelings, but in the sense of what Lacan's motives going forward are with Mao Mao, if I try to think about it like in a good way or a bad way, when I'm thinking about if he has malicious motives, why would those malicious motives exist? Out of a sense of jealousy, and he couldn't get her when he wanted to. That's what I land on.
Yeah, I definitely think that this character is probably going to be one of the highlights of this series in terms of writing. I think that he's intriguing. I mean,
agree.
he has
he's
me so
intriguing character.
He has me more than any other character being like, what words out of your mouth can I trust? Where are you trying to lead me? What are you trying to do here? You had asked, like, oh, is he doing this possibly because he couldn't solve it? I think back to when he found the pipe and the servant or whoever he was like, oh, did you figure something out? And he was like, nope, nothing at all.
Said nothing. I had a weird feeling when he, like, asked Goshin, right? Like, he knows that Mao Mao's connected to Jinshi, and he knows what kind of fucking amazing, beautiful, perfect person that Goshin is, wanting to help and trying to just be a diligent man.
Yeah.
And he's trying to help Mao Mao and asking for Mao Mao for help. Then I'm like, God, Lacan, like you're a snake, you know?
I wanted to bring up, before we leave him, the nephew. We are told that he is a weird 40-something-year-old that ended up taking in his nephew and raising him.
Yeah.
Is the nephew the blue-eyed man that we keep seeing doing stuff?
I don't think that's a bad idea.
Sneaky stuff.
I do not think that is a bad idea.
The eye color is the same. I do gotta say that the eye color is very similar for both of these characters to Mao Mao, and we do not see Mao Mao's mother's eyes.
Why would you?
Which is an interesting touch.
Okay, why would you go out of your way then to assign a mission to Mao Mao that could get her closer to uncovering your own nephew as a suspect? Or did he not even know that?
Well, who said that he...
Right?
He did bring this case up to...
Goshin.
Interesting.
It's so fascinating. Like, I feel like we could go in so many different directions.
Well, just because you tell someone how to do something doesn't... You lead a horse to water.
That's
you
true.
are not forcing them to drink. There's still... Just because you told someone how to murder someone, or how you could with poison, you are not the one poisoning that person.
Yeah, but still,
He just told him about getting the seaweed.
Like, bro, stop telling people ways to kill other people in a bar. You've done it for, like, 10 years, and... out of those 10 years, it's made people do it twice. Like, you gotta chill out. You have to focus.
But there, it's so... I can't wait to learn more. I don't want to, like, leave this story.
I know.
Because I can't wait to learn more. I think there's only, like, one other thing that two other things.
Talking about the moment when Mao Mao was so in her own head that when she turned around and said hi to Jinshi, that, like... It was obviously about something else, but the timing was so fucking good.
There's been other moments in this series that Jinshi's reaction timing to like things Mao Mao has said or done has been really spot on.
It's so good.
Okay, something not super fleshed out, and then a quote. Those are the last two things that we get the idea that when Mao Mao sees Basan, she says that he looks familiar.
Correct.
Lihaku's brother?
Maybe.
That's the only place I can go at the moment in terms of, like, why would this man be familiar looking to her?
What, and Lihaku's like, this crazy girl just exploded something next to me, and that's why he's reluctant?
And now he's like, oh, now I have to deal with this crazy girl that Master Jinshi has as a servant girl now. He does give, like, little brother vibes, though, I would say.
Interesting.
In just his personality that we got so far. And my last thing was a quote from Goshin. You are someone who knows their place.
Okay, I'm gonna branch off of that because I think that, like, the reason Goshin said that, as Mao Mao said it, was the implied nature of what was, you know, the implication. Mm-hmm. And multiple times throughout this episode, there were instances of I'll say this and you know what it means. You know?
Mm-hmm.
That's really fascinating to me.
Right. I do think Mao Mao, while super curious and running in and doing things like she did with the explosive tests last episode, I do think that as a character she is not lacking awareness necessarily and not lacking decorum. I think other characters have said about her that she is incredibly aware and observant in how to handle herself and is paying attention, is very aware of her position, I think is lines that we've had about her in terms of like as a servant she's very aware of her current like position.
See, but here's the root of my nervous energy about the situation Mao Mao's in right now with the Khan is if let's say this case that she's about to be given is her enemy on a go board or a chessboard, right? You're trying to read that enemy, analyze them, and defeat them, and win.
Mm-hmm.
If Mao Mao's under the assumption that that's her enemy the entire time, but actually there's somebody whispering falsehoods or master manipulating it that she has no idea who's even involved. Obviously, she has a hunch right now. It has nothing to do with Mao Mao's perception or capabilities. She just doesn't have enough information, and other people do. They're like, and that's what I'm anxious of. Like, she wouldn't even know to the extent somebody would be maliciously,
right.
You know.
I came out of last episode 14. I remember we did talk about a fear that I had that eventually someone was going to try to set up Mao Mao and or mislead Mao Mao in a scenario. And this episode has only furthered my worry that even if it's maybe not, it doesn't necessarily have to actually be malicious.
Yeah.
It could be more of a test. I think during the episode you were like talking about something and you were like, is this a test or is this like something a lot more malicious?
Like, totally exists the possibility of this not being trying to set up Mao Mao. I acknowledge that, and that's a lot. You don't have to think as much in if that's the case, right? In terms of theorizing what could happen in the story. But if we're considering negative outcomes, let's say that this fucking riddle of a will is actually just garbage and doesn't give enough information, and 3 kids are wanting one outcome for each of them, regardless of what Mao Mao deduces or says was the intention or says or operates on conjecture, there's not a lot of evidence or proof. Like, there's no test that could be done to confirm that this is what the will meant. Like, it's a very difficult task to be given, I feel.
Yeah, and trying to figure out what the secret technique is from this as well. I think that at the moment, I would say I'm leaning towards feeling like I am being consistently misled to think of him, Master Locken, in a negative way or in a malicious way.
That's fair.
I feel like I'm being almost like a door is being opened in front of me and someone's like, hey, look at this. You know, and maybe I should be looking at the door that's like closed with a curtain behind it over there instead.
Even in hindsight, in terms of this discussion, I'm like, man, I've been so one-track minded.
I just really feel like I'm being led somewhere.
Yeah, that's
and
fair.
I feel like I need to be suspicious of that.
You're right.
Just at least a little bit. Like,
yeah.
I'm not going so far as to being like, this man did nothing wrong. Like, I don't feel that necessarily, but I just feel like I am being led.
You are right. Gosh.
And I'm going to try to be observant as I'm being led. I will too. Just so I know when to escape. You know?
Yeah.
And fight someone.
I'm going to miss being in this mindset.
Yeah, I'm not going to miss being in this room because it's incredibly hot right now.
That's true.
But I am going to be missing Apothecary Diaries and talking about it
Trying
with
to
you.
get our friends into it. It's a thing.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and we hope to see you next time.